Welcome, I am Rael Zeeb and your host for Keep Traveling Your African Vacation, the only podcast which brings you insightful information in the African tourism industry by real tourism professionals. Today is our third episode and I have the pleasure of introducing my guest, Sara Jane Love, owner of Dune Ridge Guest House, St. Francis Bay, South Africa. Hi Sara and welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
Sara, what brings you here to living in the UK when you have such a beautiful guest house back in St. Francis Bay, SA?
Goodness. So my husband actually got an opportunity this side. So we decided to just come across here and travel a little bit with him while he's here. Then obviously just keep the guest house going on that side and then hopefully do a bit of marketing this side as well while we are here.
So tell me a little bit about yourself, the guest house. For people that haven't been onto your website, what can they expect at the guest house?
So Dune Ridge is actually situated on a 4,500 hectare nature reserve. It is a protected space and absolutely it's a perfect coastal bush experience. What we've also tried to achieve over the years is to build up a product that doesn't harm the environment. We actually have our own chickens that obviously supply the guest house with eggs. We have our own gardens, so we try and utilize our own produce for the kitchen. Basically, we try and support local as well with all of that. I have quite a strong cooking and sort of chef background. So that was quite a big focus on the guest house as well, is basically the food and also our attention to detail.
Are you rated 4-star or 5-star as a guest house?
We are rated 4-star, but we give our guests a 5-star experience.
For people that don't know St. Francis Bay, because it is a little bit of a hidden gem, maybe you can fill us in with what people can expect. How do they get there? Because it doesn't have an international airport.
Basically, a lot of our clients are self-drive. A lot of them will land in Cape Town and then do a garden route trip. They normally do sort of a 2 or 3 night stay with us before they either fly out of Port Elizabeth or they experience the malaria-free game reserves in the Eastern Cape, which is like your Shamwaris or your Pumbas. Also, Addo is pretty close to us as well. So a lot of guests actually stay with us for a couple of days and use us as a base point, then drive to Plet for a day, drive through to Addo. So we kind of like quite nicely sort of centrally situated.
Okay, you're obviously well situated as far as St. Francis Bay Links Golf Course is concerned. So do you get quite a lot of golfers coming through as well?
Sure, we do, and the nice thing is because the links are so well known, and I think it's rated in the top sort of 5 in the country, they actually do a lot of PGA and the Sunshine Tour and things like that. So we do get a lot of golf tours that come through, but also a lot of self-drive. So a lot of internationals that would come through, and then they actually spend the whole sort of month or 2 months traveling the garden route, sort of using it as a base and then actually playing golf at different areas. So I think Port Elizabeth also has a links. There's Pazula up the garden route. So they use us and then they'll play the links sort of every 3rd or 4th day, and then the rest of the time they'll either have a break in between or then they'll travel somewhere else to play golf for a day and then come through to us. We also have quite a few regular guests, return clients, that come basically every single year, and they'll base themselves somewhere, and then they might be a little bit elderly, so they don't want to do the driving up and down, so they'll actually book in with us for 1 or 2 days, have dinner the first night, just actually relax, and then we book them golf at the links the next day. They can actually just come back, have a nice dinner in the evening, have a nice leisurely breakfast the following day, and then they travel back where they're based.
So are you affiliated to the golf course in a way? You mentioned that you book them a round of golf. Would people coming there for the first time be better off asking you to book their 18 holes or a few rounds, or going direct to the golf course?
We get preferential rates, which obviously is quite nice for our guests. Then they will get a slightly better rate booking through us than going directly.
Tell me, how many beds do you have, for bigger groups that want to come through, sort of 8-ball or 12-ball? Pack of guys that want to get together and do a golfing weekend or week from overseas. How many guests can you accommodate?
In total, we can accommodate 16. We've actually just had a group now from New Zealand that's actually come through. They actually booked the whole guest house out, and there were some couples and obviously some single rooms. We have quite a big family cottage, which is ideal for 4 people as well, so for smaller groups. It's got 4 beds in it, it's got a little lounge, it's got a lovely big patio. That's also ideal for sort of honeymoon breakaways, for like long stays. We also use that unit. And then we've got 2 smaller cottages which sleep 2 in each, and then 4 suites which sleep 2 in each. And for children as well, for parents that are traveling with children, our garden suites actually have a fold-out bed in each room, so it can accommodate a 3rd person.
Okay, awesome. You mentioned earlier that you grow your own produce, like the eggs for the breakfast and that type of thing. What are you doing, if anything, as far as terms of giving back into the community?
So what we actually do is when we actually plant not only for the guest house, but we actually plant for our staff as well. We've got very much an open policy where if there's a surplus of spinach or potatoes or kale, anything like that, our staff are more than welcome to walk into the garden, pick a bunch or 2, depending how much we have, and take it home for their families. Then we're upskilling people as well, so actually bringing them in to the guest house and helping skill them. There's been quite an influx of people coming into St. Francis with the growth of the town. A lot of these people don't have skills. We've actually just upskilled a young gentleman who's now found a permanent job on one of the local farms, running some of their growing projects there. So bring people in, train them, give them the basics, and then being able to equip them with the skills to actually go out and get better jobs for themselves.
That's very commendable. As far as seasonality is concerned, for people that aren't from St. Francis and South Africa, what is your high seasons and your low seasons? And tell me about your occupancy rates during those periods.
So generally from November, we start going into our high season. I think a lot of international clients start traveling then. The weather is just improving a little bit more. I think by December it's lovely and warm. January, the weather is just phenomenal. So our high season is normally from November to about April, just after Easter. Then it starts getting a little bit quieter for our winter months. But I think there's a big misconception as well about traveling to the coast during the winter. St. Francis has some of the most incredible winters where you can actually still go down to the beach. There's no wind. The days are just absolutely glorious. I think probably the coldest months would probably be August and September. June, July is still absolutely amazing.
People that want to come from overseas, it would be fair to say that they're not going to come to St. Francis Bay for a period of 10 days to 14 days. There's so much that they want to do. So how are you dovetailing your guest expectations? Are you dealing with other retailers? Are you packaging tours?
There's quite a lot of collaborations happening. St. Francis has quite a lot to offer. We've got whale watching, there is deep sea fishing. We do a lot of corporate business. We don't only offer accommodation, we offer internationals that have booked to do weddings at our property. Then they make it a whole sort of weekend of it. In terms of bringing people there, we actually just, we collaborate with the links, with the other activities like the whale watching. Obviously just try and market that people can actually travel, use us as a base and then travel from us.
How do you see the tourism sector evolving in not only St. Francis Bay but in Southern Africa as a whole?
Goodness, look, South Africa is still a very much loved destination. I think in terms of the UK market is still pretty conservative in actually wanting to go to South Africa. I recently flew back to South Africa. They actually have people walking around there doing surveys, finding out where you come from, why you're in the country, which I thought is amazing. There is still a lot of potential for South Africa, but I think there is still a lot that needs to be done in the country. I think people are worried about the crime.
For guests that have visited your guest house, what's the best way that they can give you feedback? What policy do you have in that respect?
We send out an email at post-stay, and it's basically like a guest review form. It gives them a very sort of general questionnaire of how the stay was, how the staff. It basically just breaks everything down for them, and then they can just tick it off and then just give a little sort of blurb afterwards at the end, just a bit of feedback as to what their overall view was of the property, of the service, and basically everything that they experienced.
So if I had to look up your TripAdvisor rating, are you right up there at the 4.9 to 5?
Yes, so we are number 2 or number 1 in St. Francis currently.
Tell me, Sarah, what's your passion? What drives you?
Yeah, hospitality's always been my thing. I love seeing, for me, having internationals. So the international market is very different to your local market. I think being a local in South Africa, you don't always see the beauty in your country. I think you just become used to it. Having internationals and just experiencing what they experience and how much they love South Africa, and then just adding to that, I have the most incredible team who are the most passionate and just the most welcoming. I suppose just the epitome of what South Africans are. You know, just seeing guests leave and just like completely taken with South African culture, that sort of drives me. I also love making amazing food. Food's always been my passion, and just cooking amazing food for clients and guests. So yes, being able to like bundle that all together and see people leave and just really like their cups are full and want to come back, that has always been very fulfilling for me.
Assuming you've traveled somewhat, do you have a favorite destination, and where is it and why?
Goodness, I was lucky enough to travel Africa for a bit. I must say that Africa still holds a very big part of my heart. I did a trip through Botswana and Zambia, Malawi, and through to Mozambique. I camped on the Pans in Botswana, and it was the most incredible space, just sleeping under the stars and that complete silence. I think just having like all the sort of the game, just being totally free and walking, and you'll be driving on a main road and the next thing an elephant will walk over, and just also just how humble the people are and how friendly they are and just so welcoming of sort of visitors.
Do you have any great specials that you would like to advertise? Should people go into the website, have a look at that, or anything that you want to mention?
If anybody wants to get married or any elopements, we do amazing packages for that. We do little weddings out in the garden, just a few people. And our prices are very competitive for what you get. Everything is bespoke. We generally do put packages together for them.
So I think you've got a great property there, and I wish you all the very best. We'd like to give something away that could pique the listeners' interests at Dune Ridge.
Yes, I'm happy to give a 2-night stay with a dinner on arrival and a bottle of very delicious South African wine.
So that's 2 nights. That's very generous. Thank you very much, Sara. Today we were chatting with Sarah Jane Love of Dune Ridge Guest House. Tune in again next week when we will be chatting to Leroy Ferreira, Director of Sales and Marketing, Fancourt Resort, based in Georgia in the Eastern Cape, South Africa. Do not forget that awesome prize giveaway from Dune Ridge. All the details can be found in the show notes of this episode. If you enjoyed the show, please rate the show on Apple Podcasts or drop me an email. My name is Rael Zeev, and consider this. A few years from now, you will not remember how much it cost you, but you will still remember the memories you made. Keep traveling.